Have you ever stopped to consider how many options we have in any given day? Options about where we're going to eat, what we're going to do, who we're going to talk to, and where we're going to go. With an estimated 14,000 options every day, it is unbelievable how many different decisions we have to make every single day. Options somehow give us a sense of freedom, like we're commandeering our own ships, like somehow we can influence the direction of our lives. In fact, according to business experts, option-based products are the biggest opening in the marketplace right now. Options somehow give us a sense of power. We truly are a nation of option fanatics. We never really think about options until they're taken away from us. Like when you're on the fast lane going 120 miles an hour and somebody cuts you off going 100. The weird thing is, although we never think about options, we get so angry when our options are taken away from us. But while thousands of us are making thousands of choices, there is a whole segment of our population who don't have any choices to make. Society has different names for this population: underserviced, at risk, disengaged. But really what this group of people are optionless. Recently, the United Way did a study about the great city of Toronto. And what they found wasn't that great. Here's just a smattering of some of the statistics. 1 in 4 people in Toronto live in poverty. 52% of all single parents in Toronto live in poverty with children under the age of 17. 93,000 households live below the poverty line. There are obvious signs of many families in Toronto slipping below the poverty line. Increased evictions, the number of people applying for credit counseling, and the mushrooming of money lending outlets in poorer neighborhoods. The statistics are clear. Poverty is increasing in Toronto. The truth is, statistics like these don't mean much to us. We see the numbers and we feel sad for a minute, but we inevitably forget them as soon as we're making our next decision, like where I'm going to get coffee on my way home. But stories leave an indelible mark on our psyche. Stories remind us of the humanity of the statistics and help us to feel emotion. So for the next few moments, I want to tell you a story that represents many children whose stories I have heard over and over again. Children who deserve dignity, children who deserve help, and children who most of all deserve options. 4 years ago, I met Jerry on a sunny afternoon. He was about in grade 3 or 4, a 9-year-old who should have been in school, but who on most afternoons was not. Jerry found it too hard to concentrate at school, and his teachers found it too hard to control him. Jerry had a smile that you would never forget. He had one of those grins that was perpetually on his face, and a twinkle in his eye that made you think he was always up to something mischievous. He had a picture-perfect face, but the reality was his family life was anything from picture-perfect. Jerry had two brothers who every day he would get up and get dressed and get breakfast for and get to daycare, brothers who he would pick up after school and get home and get their homework done and put them to bed. Jerry, at the ripe old age of 9, was basically raising a family. Jerry had a mom who was a really, really good lady, but she worked really long hours, and they were never predictable. Jerry's mom worked for $8 an hour, and that $8 an hour, although it paid for some stuff, didn't really cut it. Jerry had a dad who was sort of in and out of his life. He was busy being the neighborhood drug dealer. And that neighborhood drug dealing kept him really busy, too busy to take care of his boys, and kept Jerry terrified. You see, every night Jerry went to bed, he went to bed hungry. And every night he went to bed without the assurance that most children have, that tomorrow was going to be a better day. You see, so it's not hard to imagine. It doesn't take a genius to imagine why Jerry couldn't concentrate at school. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that unless Jerry gets some tangible hope, his life will never reach its fullest potential. The reality is there are thousands of children like Jerry living right here in our nation. Their poverty may not be as grave as a third world country, but their futures look just as bleak. Without somebody intervening, many of these children will never reach their full potential and will live in a cycle of poverty and desperation for their entire lives. The Bible has a lot to say about how we treat the poor and the optionless, and whether you believe the Bible to be true or not, you can't ignore the amount of wisdom it has on this subject. Isaiah 58 is perhaps one of the most poignant chapters about the poor. God is talking to all the self-righteous and people who thought they had it all together, and he is totally ticked. I want to read you just a few verses. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for a man to humble himself. Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying on sackcloth and ashes? Is this what you call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe him and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, Here am I. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. Every time I read these words, I understand that my destiny as a person is inexplicably tied to how I treat the poor and the optionless. And the more that I have studied these verses, the more that I've come to understand that how I treat the poor in my own country is a reflection of my own character. When I read these words, I understand that if my actions don't line up with my words, that they mean nothing. You see, in our culture, there's this pervading feeling that we have to care about social needs, that we have to care about the poor, and that we have to keep abreast of poverty in our nation. But the reality is, for many of us, it's just an intellectual exercise. And there's a big difference between intellectual thought and action. For most of us, caring as an intellectual exercise is not because of indifference, but just because we don't know where to begin. Some of you maybe read the recent articles in the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail about Toronto's growing poverty. And you read them and you were sad, but you just didn't know what to do about it. Today we want to give you an opportunity to do something about it. We want to give you an opportunity to become option givers. As an organization, Liberty International Church is working hard to create options for children and their families. Weekly feeding programs, creative arts opportunities like Rumble and our Urban Art School, outdoor camp experiences, yearly scholarship awards, leadership training programs, back-to-school gift giveaways, and Christmas gift giveaways are just some of the ways that we give people hope for their future. But we know that there is much more for us to do. Every day in Toronto, thousands of children go to bed hungry, and thousands of children wake up without any hope for tomorrow. But we don't believe it has to stay this way. We believe that together we can make a difference. Tonight, the children that are singing, dancing, and celebrating life are representing all the children who are optionless in our city. And tonight, we want you to know that you can make a difference that will last not just for today, but last for generations to come. So please give. The children in our city are depending on you.